And we're back on the Breeze XR6. So this car has been sitting pretty much since we did the milkshake transmission, which was last week. Apart from last night. Last night I did take it for a drive because my idea was to get it up to proper running temp and test the transmission out, because since doing the last video I've gone and got a program called ForScan and scanned the transmission for fault codes, and it did come up with a fault code. The fault code that it was showing was something to do with the reverse part of the transmission, so it was a reverse code. So I ended up clearing that fault with ForScan and took the thing for a drive last night to test it out and see if that fault returned, and luckily it hasn't popped up so far, so that's a good thing. Now, since one of the previous videos on this car, I've been chatting with a guy through Facebook, Jerry Yan, who's a bloody legend. He convinced me to get ForScan and a decent cable to hook up to the OBD2 plug in the car, which now allows me to fully scan this car properly. Now, I've been aware of ForScan for a while. I've seen people talk about it on the forums and pages online. I've just never looked into it and thought it was a tool that anybody could get. It is a sort of a Ford-specific software that you can use to scan codes, reprogram keys, do all sorts of things to these cars. So a very good tool to have if you're playing with these cars. So I went out and bought a decent cable for it, and now I can do a lot more. So it's all new for me, but it'll be a good tool to have, especially knowing that I play with these cars quite a bit. Now, like I mentioned, I took this car for a drive last night. Now, before I took it for a drive last night, I got it up to running temp just here idling in the shed. I wanted to take the thing for a drive at proper running temperature, not like I did the other night when I sort of baby-footed it around and just gave it a test drive. So it was at running temp. As I got probably about 1 kilometre down the road from home, the gearbox did start making some weird noise. Sort of sounded like it was coming from like the torque converter. So I sort of backed off the speed a little bit and eased into it, and that noise slowly went away and never came back. And then after that, it drove perfectly. Got up to speed, got up to around about 90 k's. I didn't go overboard because the brakes and suspension on this thing I have no idea about, so I just wanted to take it easy. But I gave it enough to give a good test of the transmission, and it seemed to hold up fine. I went over to the adaptive shift mode and did some shifts down and up through the gears, and it was changing perfectly, to be honest. No issues at all. And then once I got the thing home, I've got a fairly long driveway here, probably a good 250 meters. I reversed the thing all the way down the driveway, and same thing, not a problem. Now, before I took it for that drive, I did clear the fault code that it was showing with ForScan on the ECU. So the idea was that if that fault was still active, after clearing it and taking it for a drive, that it will still throw that code on the ECU. Now, when I got back last night and parked it back into the shed, the first thing I did was grab the laptop out and gave it a scan with ForScan again to see if that code had reappeared, and it hadn't, which is a good thing. So I'm hoping that, fingers crossed, the transmission is okay, but the fact that it is driving now and moving under its own power is a positive sign. And until I sort of knew what was going on with the transmission, I still wasn't sure on what I was going to do with this car, whether it was going to be for parts or to try and get back on the road. But yeah, because it's moving under its own power, I'm confident to try and get this thing back on the road and registered again. So far, apart from the transmission flush, first thing I've done on this car is I went down and bought a brand new battery. It had no battery in it, so anytime I wanted to start or do something with this car, I've had to take the one out of my car and put into it, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. So first thing I did was go down and grab a new one. So I'm happy that's done, and I know that I'm not going to have any electrical issues as far as battery goes. Also, I've gone and bought a flush for the cooling system. So because this milkshaked, obviously there was going to be transmission fluid through the radiator and all the hoses, through the head, everything. So I've got that to put in. I still haven't flushed it yet. I did drain the radiator twice yesterday before I took it for a spin, because any oil or residual oil that was still through the system, which of course there's going to be, it settles at the top into the coolant bottle here, or expansion tank. As you can see, there's still a little bit in there, but not a whole lot. You see, it's just little drops here and there. Like I said, I do have a flush for that, but the plan is to try and get as much of this out as possible before I put that flush through, because I'm just going to be tipping that flush into transmission oil, which is not going to really do anything. So before I took it for a drive yesterday, I did drain the radiator twice and got out as much of that crap as I could. I also took the bottle off, filled that up twice, gave it a shake just to get as much oil out, and emptied that out as well. So I've got quite a bit of stuff out of it, but there is still a little bit more in there. I'll probably drain it at least once more, if not twice, before I put that system flush through it. I will get to that, but I don't want to go putting that flush through it just yet because I have ordered a new coolant bottle for my car, or expansion tank. So I've ordered an FG one for mine because I just want to get rid of this hose here that runs to the bottle just to clean up my engine bay. So the one out of my car I'm going to put in this car, and I'm going to keep the FG one for mine. Another thing is I've got 4 new tyres booked in for this week. It's now Sunday, I've got them booked in for Thursday, so it's going to have 4 new tyres fitted because this one has a leak and is pretty annoying. Every time I need to do something with this, I'll have to pump the tyre up and piss fart around, and it does leak pretty quickly. Plus the other 3 are all bald anyway, so I've just got 4 new ones, so we'll get them fitted this week. Now, when I drove it last night as well, the brakes on it are horrendous, obviously, because it's been sitting for so long. They're just thick bits of rust, basically, the discs. So I'm going to order new brakes, front and back, for it, and probably try and get those fitted before I take it to the pits. Now, I could go and change things on this car before I go to the pits, but they're really going to go over the whole thing anyway. So I only live just down the road from the place that's going to inspect this car. So it's going to be a fairly safe drive for me under a permit to move. So I'm just going to put on the new tyres and take it down as is and let them go over it with a fine tooth comb, and then I'll know what I'm looking at to get this thing fixed up. Now, of course, I'm going to do the basics, like, you know, the things that we know it needs, the easy stuff like seat belts, and I know that it's got no wing on the back. So with these, you need to have an eye level brake light these days. I think it's a legality thing here in Western Australia. So if you don't have a wing on your car or a wing with a light, you need to have a rear window brake light here at eye level, and vice versa. If you do have a wing and don't have a brake light here, you need to have one on the wing. So I've got a wing here which I might put on this car. It's a Ego grey one, so it's the wrong colour, but at least it's going to have the light in it. I may be able to paint it down the track, but for now at least it will be legal and it will work and do the job. And as far as the interior, there's a few things I need to source, but not too much really. Now, I did go and buy a carpet the other day, a few days back now, from a guy off Facebook Marketplace. He told me the carpet was good. I rocked up to the house, it was all folded up. Didn't really check it over, which was my own fault. I got the thing home and there was a massive split along the edge of the floor mat where the carpet meets along here. Now, because it was along the edge of the plastic seam, can't really fix it. So I'm a bit spewed about that. I'm not going to put it in the car. So that's made me decide to, I think I'm just going to take this one out and give it a high pressure hose. I was pretty bummed about that. I hit the guy up and asked if he'd let me take it back and get my money back. But yeah, he refused to do that. So, which is a bit of a shame. You think there's some good people out there these days, but yeah, a bit unfortunate on my end. So now I'm stuck with that carpet, and that's made me decide that I'm just going to clean this one up. I don't want to go forking out for another carpet if I've already forked out for one. Now, I am going to need another whole rear seat if I can find one. I want to try and get the correct one. I need a passenger side rear armrest, and I also need the one for the driver's side as well, the driver's front. These ones you can buy aftermarket on eBay, so I may get a brand new one of those. Well, I probably will. And then it's just a couple of little things in front here. So I need the standard handbrake cover. Every single car I've bought, these have been chewed. I don't know how it happens. I also need a shifter cover, which I've got the boot here. I could just use this one and clean it up. I've got the plastic piece that it sort of sits in the boot. I don't know why it's in the boot, but it is. And I also need the new ZF knob. This one's chewed out. Now, I have had a win with this car. I managed to get the clock out without breaking it. So that's all in one piece, which is good. I do have another clock inside, which I'll be putting in this one, which isn't painted ridiculous 24 karat gold. So that'll go back in here as well. Now, I don't know what they were thinking when they painted this ICC, but it is horrendous. They painted it with some sort of gold paint and it's just bubbled and flaked. They've had the same paint on the grille and the bumper pods, and I think even the side skirts, but it's just worn off over time because it was on the outside of the car. But yeah, it's horrendous. Now, I've got spare cup holders, so I can get rid of this. I've got the spare cover that goes here, so I'll get rid of that. I'm just going to have to paint the surround for the ZF in the silver, so I'll get a silver spray can and touch that up. And I've also gone and bought the letters here for the shifter. Just waiting for those in the mail. But apart from that, the interior just needs a really good clean. I'm going to take the seats out completely and give them a good vacuum and clean up, as well as the carpet. And that's really it. A couple of little things to do on it. They've got a black painted trim here, just little tiny things. I've got all spares of these, so not really a problem at all. And that's really about it. I've had quite a bit of interest in this car, so I just thought I'd slap a little video together just to show where it's at and what's happening with it. So it is going ahead. It's just a matter of waiting for things to come in the mail and trying to find the right parts for it. So I am trying to source those parts, like I said. So if anyone's watching these videos and you're in WA and you've got any of those bits, hit us up, because I'll definitely be interested in trying to get them. Now, a couple of those parts that I am after are available at the moment on Marketplace, but they always seem to be quite a fair way away from where I live, which is never helpful. But that's always the way. We'll end up getting all the things we need. But for now, like I said, just a little update video on where this is at. It is going ahead. So hopefully it will be back on the road and running pretty soon. Fingers crossed. You.